This is Wandering Universe. In this video, I'll be exploring a star. Yes, not just any ordinary one, but one that is historically famous in our part of the galaxy, the Star Sirius. So, let's go exploring. Here we are, showing you this illustration of the Belt of Orion, my previous video about Orion, the Belt of Orion itself. And as you can see, just down here is Sirius, situated in Canis Major, the constellation. And I'm going to show you a space view of the actual constellation itself. So indicated by these three stars right here, and Canis Major would be right down here, and Sirius is just here. Now, talk about a glittering bright element twinkling silently in the night sky. Sirius, the most famous star in the world, and no, I'm not referring to the famous film stars you've been prancing around in Hollywood, okay? I'm talking about this, all right? Sirius has been around for millions of years, appearing silently in the night skies. It's quite a flirtatious star, showing off its illuminating show that allured us humans for thousands upon thousands of years in the awe of contentful silence. But behind the glamorous exterior, this particular star, as you well know, is part of the Orion's Belt constellation. Sirius is a Greek word meaning scorching or glowing. This is what it means, okay? This is the photo taken from the Hubble telescope, as close as it can get. And yes, it does look like it really burns into your eye, and it's really a sight for sore eyes, no pun intended. It is also known as the dog star in the constellation. And here it is. And this is Sirius depicted right at the tip of its nose. It's quite cute, actually. The constellation adjacent to Orion is called Canis Major, that contain other stars alongside it, such as Canopus. Canopus star is a mythological mimic of our moon due to its shape and size, and I'll show you what I mean. So as you can see, if you compare our moon in a night sky to the size of Canopus, it's a mythological mimic of symbolizing the moon, and you would have seen that in cultural traditions when it comes to praying for rain. It is a two-star system, and the distance from Earth is about 8.6 light years, so that's really far away. It's Earth's nearest neighbor. Well, it's still far away as far as I'm concerned. The white dwarf Sirius A is twice the size and 25 times as luminous as the sun, but not as bright as Canopus or regal stars. This is a comparison photo. I think this image came from the Hubble telescope. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is Sirius A, and this is Sirius B, and this is an X-ray mirror image of the same thing right here. So, the white dwarf was once a red giant star before shedding its outer layers and collapsing to how it is around 120 million years ago. It's a binary and companion star. A faint white dwarf is a mythological mimic of our sun, and I'll show you another comparison right here. Now you can imagine Sirius being many times, 20 times bigger than our sun, and a lot brighter and a lot hotter, so you wouldn't want to stare at it too long in the night sky. The system itself is about 200 to 300 million years old. Distance between the two stars, Sirius and the white dwarf star, varies as they orbit every 50 years. Sirius is a very luminous star in the night sky due to its proximity to our solar system. Now, what's interesting about this photo, I think this was taken by the Hubble telescope. This is showing the rainbow spectrum of Sirius as it changes color while you're staring at it in the night sky. Some say it looks red, orange, white, blue, and then it changes again. Now, this could be to do with the movement of the sun So as the sun is moving around in our galaxy, in our solar system, it's the reflection of light that gives that rainbow spectrum in the night sky. So as you can see, that's what it looks like up close. Over the next 60,000 years, it will move closer to the solar system, so expect it to get gradually brighter each year. Astronomers express the brightness of stars in terms of stellar magnitude. The smaller the number, the brighter the star. But don't worry, this star won't be going away anytime soon. It will be hanging around our galaxy for the next 210,000 years. Phew. Now, here's some interesting trivia for you. The word starstruck, and you've heard this before in Hollywood magazines and gossip TV shows such as Entertainment Tonight, came from the Greeks who suffered from the ill effects due to long hours of hypnotical stargazing up towards its illuminating brightness. Sirius, not Brad Pitt or Ryan Gosling, without batting an eye. Yes, it is one of the most enchanting and eye-catching stars in our galaxy. Now, stepping aside from the scientific mumbo-jumbo, let's get into some of the rather mythological aspects that can join Sirius. During ancient Egypt, the heliacal rising of Sirius marks the flooding of the River Nile in Egypt. This demonstrates it. This was a photo that was taken last century, and as you can see, this speaks for itself. The Nile does flood just before the start of winter, and it floods over the edge of the coastal region, and it almost can flood up to the bottom edge of the pyramids, but not to be exact. And I'll show you another photo. This is Sahar. I think it's Sahar, that's right, Sahar, Orion belt in Egyptian hieroglyphic writing. Here's Sirius right here. This is supposed to be Orion. These are the other stars, and this is its companion star right there, and that's Horus, the falcon god, and that's the boat that Orion journeys on in space around the galaxy and how it appeared on Earth. So quite an interesting story behind this picture itself. The Greeks called this seasonal forecast as the dog days of summer. During July to August, it would get very hot and dry with very little rainfall, even around the Mediterranean coast. Due to their observation hypothesis, Sirius referenced as a morning star that brought on hot and dry summer, causing a drought. The dog days was the reappearance of the star in summer that brought on cooling breezes, and thank goodness they needed that, otherwise they'd be suffering from heat exhaustion. And we get that here in Australia too. During the wet season, it gets very hot, it gets very humid, and we get very strong thunderstorm activity here. But during the southern parts of Australia, such as Victoria and South Australia, they get incredibly hot, dry days during a drought, and sometimes the temperatures can range between 41 to 46 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit, if you're watching this from America. This is one of the coins I found online depicting the Greek mythology of Canis Major, and as you can see here, if you can see it right here where I'm pointing the arrow, that's the star Sirius right next to the dog itself. So quite interesting how the Greeks were very into astronomy during its time, coordinating, mathematically applying the positions of the stars and using mythology in order to depict a story about how Sirius evolved in our galaxy. So quite fascinating look into it. In the vast majority of cultures, they had adapted to Sirius's formation well into, during, and after the Ice Age. Sirius, as they perceived it, as a shape of a dog, and somehow in their mind integrated that star as some form of kindred spirit to that of a dog. And I'll show you what I mean. I know, doesn't this bring a smile to your face when you see a dog like that? Oh, that is so cute. I know this sounds oddly funny, but apparently this was true at its time. The ancient Greeks believed that its brightness could affect the dog's eyesight, making it behave weird and strange. It was a superstitious correlation of what dogs might do during the very hot days of summer, such as panting too much, diarrhea, vomiting, and extreme cases foaming at the mouth would bring the onslaught of rabies. But these days, because we got water reservoirs and ample supplies of water just by turning the tap on, you just put it in a bowl, pour it in the bowl, and just give it to the dog right there. So these days they wouldn't suffer to that extent, but I guess during the ancient Greek times they would have, if they had a long drought series. And I'll show you what I mean. Yes, I know. See, so if they feel unwell, all you have to do is just give them water, keep them hydrated, a lot of TLC, and believe me, they'll be back to normal in no time. Sirius in these cultures represented rain, a lot of it if prayed and meditated on it at the right time just before the season comes. And I'll show you what I mean. This is a photo taken a while back, and this is just illustrating how far the River Nile can flood the farms near the coastal edge of the river. So as you can see, once the floods begin to ebb into the farming regions there, the farming plains there, once the crops have been sowed and once it's planted, then the water just soaks into the soil and once the flood waters have subsided and a bit of sunshine and it gives good nutrients into the soil, this allows seeds to pop open and the plant begins to grow and it harvests, and this could mean a very good bumper harvest for the farmers so they can profit off it. The Polynesians marked the star as the coming of winter and a navigational reference point to sail across the Pacific Ocean. Now, you've seen this illustration of the Kikai Hawaii Orion's belt. So you would have seen this mapped out or illustrated, should I say, in one of my videos on the Polynesian wayfinders. So go ahead and watch that, or you can watch my history on Orion's belt. And as you can see, this is Sirius. That's this reference point. The Orion's belt is the starting point, and then they mathematically calculate the journey starting from the horizon of east and then heading all the way up north to go on their journey from, say, New Zealand all the way to Hawaii. This is how they chart their course. What's interesting is the Polynesians used this very star as their navigational reference to sail across the Pacific Ocean. It was served as a latitude marker. A declination of Sirius matches the latitude of the archipelago of Fiji at 17 degrees south and passes directly over the islands each sidereal day. A latitude marker is a timekeeping system that astronomers use to locate celestial objects. And I'll show you an illustration of what I've said before. Here's south, there's north. Here's Canopus, here's Sirius, so that's their marker, and then they begin to follow the rest of the stars along the course of their Pacific Ocean voyage. So very well done, this particular map. Sirius marked the onset of the winter solstice. The Maoris, whose name I'll try and pronounce this well, Takura, describes Sirius as the star and season simultaneously. Hawaiians see Sirius as, I'll get this right, Kaula. Marquesas people see it as Taua, and I'll show you what I mean here. This is the Timihia Tua Sirius depicting Sirius. So this would depict the belt of Orion. So this is Orion right here. This would be Sirius, the big star, and this would be Canopus, the star just over next door to it. So this is how they imagined the belt of Orion constellation. The Maoris in New Zealand see it as Rihua, and the Tahitians see it as, now this is a very long name, and I'll try and pronounce this correctly, okay? So don't get too upset if I don't get this right. Okay. Taura ihiti te tara ti fia. I hope I got this right. Sirius also represents as the great bird constellation called Manu. And this is one of the birds in New Zealand. And as you can see, it's a beautiful depiction of Manu. I love the white hue, the tinge on its feathers and the colors that match with it. And even the lovely head of the bird, the face, really beautiful shape of the beak right there. So quite a lovely bird. If you ever want to holiday in New Zealand and you want to go bird watching, well, take this into account, because you might come across it one day when the world gets itself back into its balance without the current state of affairs of a lockdown and everything else affecting it. So if you want to plan your holiday when all that ends, please go right ahead. Now, the Persians saw it as the rainmaker. This is the tablet of Shamesh relief, and here depicts Sirius as they saw it back then. The Chinese saw it as the wolf, as you can see right here. What's interesting, this is supposed to be the serpent. They're two serpents or snakes entwining up to Sirius right here. And this is the constellation surrounding Sirius as they imagined or observed in the night sky. There's the Big Dipper right here. There's the other two constellations, and Sirius would possibly be Canis Major here on the top left side, and these two are the male and female entity Chinese gods entwining as one. So this is a very interesting depiction of how they saw Orion's belt and Sirius. Now, this gets more interesting. The Native Americans saw it as the wolf star. Now, this is the only photo I found online that comes close to it. Here, right here, if you can see it here, this is Canis Major. So it looks like a wolf. And this is the belt of Orion as they saw it, and that would be our solar system. So this would show that this is all contained within our Milky Way. The Indians in India saw it as the rain star, and I'll show you what I mean. So this is close. This is quite close to how they imagined it in the night sky, and they would meditate on this, they would pray for it just before the monsoon season starts. Sirius is sometimes known to them as Savannah, the dog of Prince, I'll try and pronounce this correctly, Yudhisthira. Okay. And this is a depiction of the very prince himself. I'd say this would be the belt of Orion. So this is Orion himself, the Greek god or the Indian god, as the Hindus have seen it. And this would be the very prince himself going after and attacking Orion. And this would be Canopus, I think. And these would be the other stars in the night sky as they would have imagined it in their Indian mythology. So it's very interesting how other cultures around the world studied and mapped out quite meticulously the constellation in the night sky, and then depicted it through their stories and in their drawings, how they imagined the beginnings of Sirius and how it evolved over the millions of years. So quite interesting trivia right there. Stargazing. Who would have thought we'd spend thousands upon thousands of years looking up, gazing at its wanderlust amber, dancing silently across our skies, never knowing the true reason why we gaze at them? Do our curious minds feel dissatisfied with the current state of affairs conquering our world? Ever so slowly and quietly sponging away our sense of adventure whilst we're playing it safe? As our minds and hearts yearn to explore, to discover, to enlighten our spirits, we sit and look up to the heavens and wonder if there is a better world, somewhere out there in our galaxy, far, far away. But what you really want to know is, are we alone? Soon, I'll be turning my exploration of Sirius up a notch and explore its cultural superstition behind the mythology of this majestic star. Why this star left a powerful imprint that correlates between divinity of power and predictor of rain. That's all for now.